Ken Kesey's novel One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is narrated by the character Bromden. Many patients and most of the staff call Bromden Chief or Chief Bromden because of his Native American heritage. The setting takes place in a mental hospital, where Bromden has been a patient on the ward longer than anyone can remember. Ever since he was a young boy, people, especially adults, paid little attention to Bromden. The nurses and doctors at the ward assumed him to be deaf and mute. He seemed mostly useless to everyone on the ward, so he became something like another janitor. With Bromden narrating the novel, you can hear his thoughts and understand his fears. Although he is a 6-foot-something tall Indian, he views himself as a small man. His fear has overcome him. He let society win. But in the midst of his defeat came a hero, an odd-looking hero, one with calloused, dirt-caked hands and bright red hair. This man, McMurphy, brought power, hope, and liberty to the ward. I hide in the mop closet and listen, my heart beating in the dark, and I try to keep from getting scared, try to get my thoughts off someplace else. At the beginning, Bromden is driven by fear of the Black Boys and Nurse Ratched. Although he has not let it take complete control over him, his fear silences him. He is powerless. That palm made a scuffing sound against my hand. I remember the fingers were thick and strong, closing over mine, and my hand commenced to feel peculiar and went to swelling up out there on my stick of an arm, like he was transmitting his own blood into it. It rang with blood and power. It blowed up near as big as his, I remember. McMurphy gives Bromden the first bit of power by simply acknowledging him as a man and shaking his hand. Already, Bromden gets a glimpse of hope. It's too late to stop it now. McMurphy did something to it that first day, put some kind of hex on it with his hand so it won't act like I order it. There's no sense in it, any fool can see. I wouldn't do it on my own. Just by the way the nurse is staring at me with her mouth empty of words, I can see I'm in for trouble. But I can't stop it. McMurphy's got hidden wires hooked to it, lifting it slow just to get me out of the fog and into the open where I'm fair game. He's doing it. Wires. No, that's not the truth. I lifted it myself. Bromden wants to blame McMurphy for raising his hand, but he realizes that the power came from within. That first day, McMurphy really did transfer power over to him. Bromden received confidence and bravery, and now he used it to raise his hand and vote, fully knowing that Nurse Ratched was watching. Here he takes his first bold step. No, I'm way too little. I used to be big, but not no more. You are twice the size of me. Bromden views himself as a tiny man, because he doesn't talk or stand up to anyone. His voice is muted because no one acknowledges him or gives him value. Look there, Chief, what'd I tell ya? You growed half a foot already. McMurphy is going to help Bromden get big again. Bromden thinks it's his height, but what McMurphy is really going to give him is confidence and the guts to be a man again. It started slow and pumped itself full, swelling the men bigger and bigger. I watched, part of them, laughing with them, and somehow not with them. I was off the boat, blown up off the water and skating the wind with those blackbirds, high above myself, and I could look down and see myself and the rest of the guys. See the boat rocking there in the middle of those diving birds. See McMurphy surrounded by his dozen people, and watching them, us, swinging a laughter that rang out on the water in ever-widening circles, farther and farther until it crashed up on beaches all over the coast, on beaches all over all coasts, and wave after wave after wave. Bromden is free from the chains of fear that were locked on him by Nurse Ratched in the mental facility. He is free, liberated, and laughing among men. I thought he'd be real disappointed, but when I stepped back, he was all grins and pointing to where the panel was off its mooring by half a foot. Bromden lifts the control panel. He is big again, in mind, body, and spirit. So I figure what happened in the shower room that afternoon was more my fault than anybody else's, and that's why the only way I could make any kind of amends was by doing what I did, without thinking about being cagey or safe or what would happen to me, and not worrying about anything else for once but the thing that needed to be done and the doing of it. Bromden helps McMurphy fight the Black Boys when they are bullying another patient. Here Bromden is a man that takes action and responsibility. At the end of the novel, Bromden is able to use what McMurphy taught him in order to escape the ward. He lifts the control panel again and breaks through the window. Finally, he overcomes his fear. Nurse Ratched, the ward, and ultimately the corrupted expectations of society. I ran across the grounds in the direction I remembered seeing the dog go, toward the highway. I remember I was taking huge strides as I ran, seeming to step and float a long ways before my next foot struck the earth. I felt like I was flying, free. Throughout this novel, we see small acts of courage from Bromden that eventually make him whole again.
Created using Powtoon.